I don't believe that balance exists. I believe it's wholeness.
I'm whole to begin with, but I have work to do.
Wholeness to me is being able to be your own bridge to your heart, through your heart.
As a dedicated success mentor and coach, Nina Robert is committed to helping individuals wake up and live fulfilling lives by transforming their ideas into tangible outcomes. She understands that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, whether it's within one's professional career, personal relationships, or physical and mental well-being. I believe you will discover multiple nuggets of gold from Nina as we talk about how to think into getting the results you desire.
My journey to becoming a coach actually started with some bad news that I received a few years ago, and that actually turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. So the story is, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and after spending maybe the first few days just feeling sorry about myself, getting really sad and depressed, I said, okay, I think I have the choice to either accept this new reality and live with it, or just try to understand why my body was attacking itself since it's an autoimmune disease, and how I actually can change this pattern into my mind and heal myself. So this was the decision I took, and I was already familiar with a few self-development principles that I was trying to apply in my life. So I immediately started looking into the law of attraction, and this is where I actually discovered the great Bob Proctor. After just a few minutes of watching Bob explain how the mind actually works and how we are able to create our own reality and change our own destiny and shape it, I immediately decided to join the institute that he created. It's called the Proctor Gallagher Institute, and to follow his teachings. After just a few months of joining his program, I started to actually see my whole life shift. My reality really changed really fast. So my results got better at work, in terms of relationships, of money. And of course, needless to say, I'm now healed from my illness and I've never been healthier. So after I saw my results really change with my own eyes, I said, okay, I actually want to devote myself to helping people and make sure I can touch lives and can change lives the way my life was touched and changed by Bob Proctor.
Wow. Do you remember what that first initial discovery was as you listened to him? What was that first initial switch that turned on and you thought, oh, that makes sense. That was different than maybe you'd heard before. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah. It's actually the way he explained things. It's very simple yet very powerful, and it goes straight to the mind. You fully understand it and you fully feel it. I've actually always been into self-development, and I read many books and watched many videos and courses on the matter before knowing Bob Proctor. But I've never heard someone explain how the mind works and how we actually operate as spiritual beings with scientific proof. So that's what made the difference for me. He actually explained it in such a simple manner that even a child can understand and apply his teachings. So for the first time, I didn't just get mere tips and tricks on how to stay positive and be more productive, but I actually understood the why scientifically, and the how was explained in a very structured and clear way also. So Bob Proctor has a way of explaining the mind that no one else does.
That's amazing. So, how did this change show up in your life? You talked about that change, and you said it was almost immediate.
It was, yeah, it was really almost immediate, because once you actually shift your mindset, you change your perception of things. Once you change your perception, you're seeing your reality in a different way, you're acting in a different way, and then the results just start showing. So I can share a few changes that happened to me just a few months after starting to study Bob. For example, on a personal level, I'm now a whole different person. A few years ago, I was a very shy, very introverted person, and I always felt like I'm invisible, So now I have more confidence, more charisma, and I actually feel like I radiate more energy. And people around me start noticing this and telling me how different I was from before. On a professional level, for example, I got multiple promotions on my job in the corporate world. I wrote my first book that I called Clean Up Your Life, and that we'll talk about later. And then I started this coaching business. So a lot happened also in my professional life. Many other things changed also in my life, my income, my relationships, even my physical appearance. I'm now healthier, more fit, I even dress very differently, and I radiate a whole different vibe around people.
Wow, that's amazing. That's such an amazing journey. And we talked about before, and I know Bob Proctor, one of the teachings that was really influential was this idea of paradigms. And so can you talk about paradigms and how that influenced you and what that is? Teach us a little bit about that concept.
Yeah. So the most important lesson I learned was actually about paradigms. Before that, I didn't even know what a paradigm was. And for those who aren't familiar with the term, a paradigm is a multitude of habits that are so anchored into our subconscious mind, we're not even aware of them. And these habits can be genetic, things that we learn in our childhood, or habits that we picked up during our lives. A few examples of paradigms are maybe the way of speaking in public. For example, some people are very shy, very introverted, as I was myself before, and some other people are very gregarious and very charismatic. Let's look at the way we dress, for example. Why we choose certain styles, certain colors. The way we dress actually tells a lot about how we want to project ourselves to the world. And most of the time, it's a subconscious choice. So this is also a paradigm example. The way we prefer certain foods and not others. That's also a paradigm. We were programmed from our childhood to like the foods that we grew up eating, and we continue to prefer it to any other type of food. Of course, the examples are multiple and not always applicable for all people, but the principle is the same. Most of our habits and our daily choices are responding to a preset program that is called a paradigm. Think of it as a software that is anchored into our minds that make us make the choice and have this preference for this or that, or have this habit or not that. A paradigm controls a major part of our choices and consequently controls our results and our lives. So the bad news is most of our choices are actually subconscious, even if we think we know the reason. Most of the time, the apparent reason is not the real one. And the good news is a paradigm can actually change, and we have the power to make this change. The process may take some time, but it's actually very feasible, and we are able to change this subconscious habit to make better choices and attract eventually better results.
Mm. So sometimes it's the hardest part is even discovering what the paradigm is, because you just think that's the reality. You know, like I liked your example of like just the way you dress or the foods you like. You think, you don't stop and think why, or you don't stop and wonder and question that. You just live that way. And then until one day you kind of thought, I wonder why I wear that, and do you find that you go and figure out the why, or do you just decide if you want to change it and move from there?
Sometimes it's really hard to figure out the why, but we have to be aware that it's actually subconscious, and we have to differentiate between the first why that comes to mind when we ask ourselves, why am I acting the way I'm acting, or why am I choosing this or not that, and the real reason that is behind that is the paradigm. So it's not obvious to find the source, the root cause of the paradigm, but just identify that it is a paradigm, identify if it's good or bad, because paradigms are not simply negative or not always negative. It's just a preset of program. So you can choose to change the paradigm if it's not serving you any good, or you can just keep it if it's not really that important. If you prefer certain foods to others, that's not a big deal if these foods are not causing you any harm, for example.
Mm. Did you find there was a paradigm behind your autoimmune disease?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So it was basically one of my psychological blockages due to my childhood. So for some reason, a part of my brain decided to attack itself. So I didn't really dive deeper into that. I knew approximately what the cause was, but it's not really that important to find the cause when you can simply change it and just shift your mindset.
Right. It's more about discovering the paradigm than mapping it,
Yeah.
really.
Just discovering that it is a paradigm, deciding if it's good for you or if it's blocking you, and then know that you can change it.
Yes, autoimmune disease are often um, rooted in something deeper, and
It is.
there's a lot of scientific evidence that supports that. So it's something that we're learning, and maybe, you know, for the future generations, we can start to understand what we can do to prevent those things from happening. We can almost eradicate those
Yeah.
diseases in the future when we understand some of these concepts that you're sharing. So I think it's great. One of the things that Bob is really good at talking about is goals and goal setting and that kind of thing. And so, how do I create a positive mindset to achieve my goals? Like, how do I, because I know that that's something that's important, is that it's not just about wishful thinking. It's actually almost using this machine of our mind to create it. So um, how would you suggest getting that mindset in place so that we can achieve our goals?
In order, I think, to have a positive mindset, we need to have a strong mental attitude, to stay in charge no matter the situation, no matter the environment we're in. Now, what do I mean by that? Most of the time, a person sets up a goal and gets really motivated to achieve it. Then they start working on it, but after a while, after a few first failures and disappointments, one can get really discouraged and maybe eventually give up. So, in order to stay in charge of our destiny, no matter the situation, we need to first stay focused on the goal. That's the main thing. If we want it badly enough, we'll just keep going no matter what. If we feel discouraged at the first difficulty, maybe we should ask ourselves this: do I really want that? Or maybe I want something else that is maybe more motivating, and maybe we will that will keep me going. If the answer is a heartful yes, then you'll have no difficulty to keep going, and you can keep searching for new alternatives after a failure, and eventually keep trying again and again until you succeed, until you reach your goal. Another very important thing to keep in mind in order to stay positive is that who you surround yourself with can actually hugely impact your results. Now, we often hear the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. It's actually not only that, because you're also the average of all the people you surround yourself with. Could be your family, your friends, your society, people you watch and listen to on the internet. Your surroundings play a big role in keeping you motivated and positive, or rather discourage you and keep you in the same spot for years. So we have to choose very wisely who and what we listen to, for example. We become what we think about, that we have the choice to choose what we think about, to choose what we focus on, to craft and to create our own ideas, our own thoughts, to accept or reject whatever idea that is presented to us. And then these thoughts will transform into emotions. When we say emotions, we're talking about the subconscious. The subconscious level will cause our bodies to move, will cause our actions. And these actions will cause the reaction from everybody that we encounter, from the universe in general. And as I said before, everything is connected. So our actions will cause the reaction, and the reaction will eventually maybe cause more actions from our side, and eventually cause our results and our dreams to become true.
Mm, great. I love it. I love it. I have a question for you. So I think one thing that's interesting, I think, about when you're talking about the idea of paradigms is sometimes the paradigm is actually, I just wrote down action causes reactions, which I loved when you talked about that. And I think what's interesting is I think when the paradigm's in place, we are actually reacting versus acting. Do you know what I mean? We're in a reaction to our paradigm. And so I think that's really interesting, because if you're reacting, you're not really acting from your true self. It's in someone else is running the show, or something else is causing a reaction versus an action. I think that's one of the interesting things about really understanding these kind of things, is there's a big difference there between reacting and acting. I don't know if you get into, if you're in a traffic jam and you get upset, that's a reaction to the there's not an action that you're taking. You're in reactive mode, and reaction just isn't, it doesn't feel good. It's not a good frequency. It's not a good vibration
it's never a good frequency. Actually talking about what I call reacting versus responding. When you react, you're not thinking. You're not really aware of what you're doing. It's like a reflex. Okay, sometimes a reaction can save your life. For example, if you're in danger and you won't even think, you react, it can save your life. But some other times, and usually when you react, you don't really take the time to process and to say, okay, what do I choose to do or say in this situation? When you take a few seconds to just actually process this and make a choice, it will make a whole difference into the situation, into the result, the outcoming of the situation. So it's responding versus reacting. You always want to respond. You always want to take a few moments to process this thought. Say, okay, do I have to accept this action that I'm getting? Do I have to accept this reality or this news? Or can I just take the time, breathe deep, and then decide to maybe reject the idea, maybe ignore it, maybe take my time and respond after this situation has passed? So it's really up to you. You just need to take, it could be really like a millisecond to think about it and transform it into a response instead of a reaction.
Yeah, and I think even taking to recognize maybe if there's even, what I would say, what I do a lot of is that maybe there's some healing that needs to happen there. Maybe there's some compassion that needs to happen there. So maybe we need to pause there for a minute so that you can act, because sometimes that reactive place just keeps spinning and spinning, and we don't get a chance to, it's like difficult, that the muscle is so weak that we can't expect it to wait. We can't expect it to hold any weight if it's too weak. So maybe we have to stop here and figure that out. And sometimes it's compassion. Sometimes it's a kick in the pants. Sometimes it's more like, no, we can do it. And that's where I think that intuition is so important, because the individual kind of has to know which one needs to happen, because I work with a lot of clients who they're very much in the kick in the pants thing. But they keep kicking themselves in the pants, and then they're almost, that's their new paradigm, is I just got to pull myself together and I just got to do it. And it works for a while, but there's just another paradigm in place, And so sometimes I'll say to them, oh, we got to go back. And so I'll say, we got to do some healing, we got to do some healing work in order to kind of work through that paradigm that's coming in and saying, you got to do it. What is wrong with you? Just do it. That kind of muscly
Indeed. Yeah. So I think the main takeaway is to always be aware of what messages we are actually accepting and telling ourselves in our minds, and always stay conscious and stay aware that we have the choice to accept or reject any idea. Once we start reacting, it usually will escalate, because the person we're reacting to will also react, and it would start escalate. It will never be a good end to it. So you always have the choice to respond, take a few moments, maybe not respond to this email immediately, maybe not take this call right now, just give it a few seconds, process it, and maybe check if there is any unhealed trauma or some psychological blockage or whatever it is in you that is still not healed, and make sure it will not trigger this reaction in you.
We have to think about that mind and what the mind's telling us, and we talk about what the emotions that brings up, and we talk about what that makes us want to do. But sometimes we have these these limiting beliefs, these kind of things that get in our way. And I think what you kind of mentioned it for a little bit. I think it's interesting how sometimes we don't even know they're just our programming. We don't know that they're there. And so, what do you find is a common limiting belief that gets in the way, or, that we deal with and that you support often?
One of the most common limiting beliefs is around money. It's widely believed that there is virtue in poverty, for example. Now, whatever might be said in praise of poverty, the thing is, one cannot live fully and grow in their business, their craft, and their life without having the material resources to do so. Another thing is, when you're financially limited, the help you can provide to other people is limited as well to your physical presence. Whereas when you have more money, your help and your service to others can reach way further than your physical presence. So the limiting belief here is that wanting more money is not a good thing. And the truth is, wanting and having more money can allow you to live a fuller, more fulfilling life, have more time to do what you enjoy doing, and to help more people. I can think of another limiting belief that is, I am not enough, or they can, but I cannot. We usually compare ourselves with other people who already achieved what we want to achieve, and we immediately start the negative self-talk, telling ourselves the many reasons why we can't, rather than thinking of ways that we can. So that's a huge limiting belief present in many minds. By comparing ourselves to others, we never have the full picture to make just a just comparison. Because to each of us, there are inner battles, and we don't often share our inner battles, we don't share our failures. So others will usually only see the achievements without having the full story of the number of failures each one of them faced before getting the results they're getting now, for example. So the takeaway here is, whatever you convince yourself with, it becomes true. If you believe that you can and you will, that you're worthy, you're halfway there already. If you believe that you're not enough or not worthy, then you won't even try hard enough, right?
Totally true. And it's helpful sometimes for me, and I work with my clients too. Sometimes I'll even talk about a part of me, because sometimes it's like a part of me wants to, and and that's how we word it. And it's like, okay, then let's talk to that other part,
Yeah.
And it's helpful sometimes to just use that kind of language because it does this. The conscious mind is like, of course I want that. Of course I want that. And so we're like, we can say, yes, we do want that, consciously. And then what other parts, what other things come up, and we can talk to those. And it's really fascinating when you dialogue with these different parts, how they have things to say sometimes, it's like, and because like on the surface, I think people would say, oh no, I don't think poverty is virtuous, but there is a part of us that maybe we would word it a different way, but in the end, that's kind of how it describes itself, and going into those parts of the mind and discovering that. Yeah, right. Isn't that interesting? So
Yeah. So actually, yeah, it's all about the self-talk and the way we choose our words, because the more we repeat the same pattern of words, the same pattern of ideas, the more the idea is just anchored more and more into our subconscious. So even if we consciously say that, okay, yeah, maybe I want to be rich, maybe I'm worth it, do we actually believe it in a subconscious mind, or do we still have this limiting belief that if I became rich, maybe I'll become maybe a superficial person, maybe I will forget my roots, maybe I will forget my essence as a human being. So let's make sure that the self-talk is always positive around money, for example. And let's make sure that we repeat always the same pattern that is positive, that is constructive, that is creative around money. And not in our day-to-day life, we usually avoid even talking about money. We usually avoid sharing how much we earn, for example. Or if I ask a friend, like, what is your financial goal for next year, they're usually a bit shy to say, okay, maybe I want $1 million. So what's the problem? Usually some people are not even daring to share their ambitions about money.
Right. We've got some societal paradigms going on
Yeah,
that
for
that
sure.
we that
Yeah.
we bump up against, because it becomes, and that's why I always say it's funny, because if an alien came down on the planet and they knew nothing, they did not know these paradigms, they would be really curious about why that's a paradigm that would just be
Yeah.
benign, or it just wouldn't have any meaning to them, as far as why is that a rule and this is not a rule. Like, I can ask
Yeah.
you how you're doing, but I can't ask you how much money you make. Why? They would just be curious.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can ask me what I ate, but you cannot ask me what my last payroll was. Like, why? It's just another fact, and it's just as impacting to my life and to my choices as what I eat or the way I dress. So the funny thing about paradigms is that they happened for a reason. Maybe historically there was a reason why talking about money was not really a good thing around society. Maybe because of, I don't know, societal differences. It could be anything. But the thing about paradigms is that they happen for a reason, maybe. But even when the reason disappears, the paradigm would still be there. And it wouldn't make sense anymore. But since we're not even aware that it exists, we won't even try to change it. And that's the dangerous thing, I would say, about paradigms.
Yes. And it's interesting. I can't remember. I was trying to think of the quote, or where I heard it from, but they talked about how the body is a kind of a manifestation of the subconscious. And what I thought was interesting is thinking about what you're saying. We can look at it as, where you had this disease that came up, and when you went into that subconscious and cleared that the dis-ease of your body, of your subconscious, then it went into your body. And we can also reverse that, because also the thought, when we're looking towards making a goal, it is really important to think it and then to imagine the feelings in the body of what that would be like. That just ups the the manifestation of those goals 100-fold. So I think, but it's got to be kind of in this flow of, we've got to have the idea of it, we've got to know what it is, and have a structure around it, and words, I think, are one of the ways that we as humans talk about. So I think it's interesting and right that you say we have to be careful with how we speak, because that's how those paradigms can probably form with just a simple sentence that we don't think much of. And maybe even, I was listening to a song the other day, and I was like singing along, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to sing these lyrics, because they were kind of a downer, and I just kind of thought, oh, okay, wondering if, just kind of sat there for a minute and thought, I need to be more clear and be more intentional with what's I'm thinking and talking and singing, right? Even though it wasn't my words, it could be creating a paradigm, and that's something.
Of course. The words that you're repeating are actually affirmations. So I've noticed that also. I do have many songs that I used to love and used to sing along and listen to all the time. And now that I'm conscious and aware of the importance of what I say and what I listen to, and the way it impacts my life, I just would start listening to the song, and then I'd say, no, this is not something I want to repeat or I want to listen to. Like, okay, maybe the melody is nice, maybe I used to love this song, but it's not going to serve me any good. So all of my playlists now, I pay attention on the lyrics, on if the melody is sad, if it's kind of gives me this bad vibration, I don't want it. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you are working toward and serving a client, how would you help them try and reframe those thoughts? Like, how do you get that habit to change? What are some tricks for that?
Yeah, so the first trick is to really be aware of what we're saying and what we're repeating. Many of my friends and my clients are used to say, no, I can't do that. Oh, this is too hard. Oh, you can do it. You're very good at it. Maybe it's not for me. These are the first ideas and the first words that come to their mind. So I try to first make them aware of that, what they're saying. Repeat that, because sometimes we say things that we don't really repeat in our minds, and we don't really know the impact of that into our on our choices in our lives. So I first make them aware of what they're saying, then make them try to write more. When you write, you're more conscious, you're more aware. When you, for example, describe your day at the end of the day, try to incorporate positive affirmations. Even if, like, at the end of the day, you're talking to your friends or to your family members about the day, about the challenges that you faced, make sure you incorporate, like, how maybe brave you were facing this client that was difficult, or how maybe you were patient enough for this train that was delayed. Instead of just complaining and just adding more and more negativity, you already accomplished the day, you already did your best. So make sure you're rewarding yourself and you're projecting just positivity at the end of the day. This is one of the examples that we actually can be aware of our choice of words. This is the first step. And the second step is to always make sure we are on a good vibration. When you're keeping yourself on a good mood, when you stay happy, smiling, surrounding yourself with people that are positive, this is also a very big step into staying in a good vibration and then staying connected to your goal.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe the vibration of things? I know that Bob talks a lot about that. How would you describe that to somebody that doesn't understand that concept?
Yeah, so I can describe it using quantum physics. It's simpler than it sounds. We are actually living in a universe that is based on wavelengths, on frequencies. Everything we see, the things we touch, the things we see, are actually just vibrations, just frequencies. The level of frequencies would make colors, would make textures, would just define everything we're experiencing with our five senses. So we are energetic beings, and everything in the universe just vibrates. The level of vibration, that is the frequency, will define where you're at and where you're going. So I would define vibration as just the way we exist, but it's just our five senses that give, I wouldn't say illusion, but it would give this shape of reality that we're perceiving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we had, I watched a show once and it talked about what if we could see things that were really big and it went into the universe. I mean, it exists out there, but we can't see it. And then it went into small, like there's all these tiny, tiny micro levels of things going on. We can't really see it. And then it went through, it's like it put some glasses on it. It was like, if we could see all the wavelengths going in the air, because we all learned in when we were young, you have sound waves, and they literally are a wave of sound, or the eyes, they literally, the different colors have different the peaks and valleys of that wavelength are what actually determine the color that you're seeing.
Yeah.
That it is. So if you look at that little wavelength, that's what we're calling a vibration, and so it's very simple, but some people get confused by it, or they don't, it's not something they've thought about before. But yeah, I loved your explanation. I think that was great. So we talk a lot about intuition. So if I wanted to expand my intuition or become more intuitive, how would I do that? What would I do to get more intuitive?
Intuition is actually a mental muscle. It's called a mental faculty that all of us have, just like our five senses. We have a total of 6 mental faculties that are the intuition, reason, perception, the memory, the will, and the imagination. Like any other muscle in our body, intuition is a mind muscle and can be strengthened with exercise. For example, try to always be mindful of the little voice inside of you that tells you when something is wrong, when something feels off. it's usually the first feeling that you get that is pure intuition, because after a few seconds, the mind just starts rationalizing, it starts reasoning, starts to make sense or to try to make sense. And you will not be able to distinguish your gut feeling, your intuition, from your rational mind anymore. In the beginning, if you want to do this exercise, it may not be very reliable since you're not used to listen to this voice. So you have to keep listening and keep maybe trusting it the very first few times until you can clearly distinguish it more from your other thoughts, your reason. And eventually it will become stronger and stronger, that like any other muscle.
I think it's great that you call it a muscle, because I think it's helpful, again, if we use our body, because that feeling, it kind of feels a little different, and that's the fine tune within the body. You'll be like, no, I know what I'm doing. I know what this looks like. I know what we're going to do. And you just feel like empowered by it. And it's that kind of muscle, versus if you think about that, I totally felt it inside my own body when you said, yeah, after a few seconds, your logic starts to come in. That is a little less empowering. That doesn't empower me. And I don't feel that in my body, this empowerment. And so it's that little tiny difference that you can start to tune into and really feel the difference between those two. And that's the muscle. So it's a literal muscle, I think, in your body. Indeed. Or some kind of a physical thing. It totally is.
Yeah. When we say it's a muscle, it actually makes sense, because we understand that if I train my muscles right, if I do exercises to enhance strength, my muscles will get stronger. So it makes sense to assimilate the mind muscles to the body muscles, because it makes sense to us. So we are more accepting of this idea that, okay, I have these 6 muscles that I can, and I will improve with exercise. And basically, to summarize how intuition works, the first idea that comes to your mind, the first gut feeling, that's intuition. The second is usually the paradigm. So now you know.
Yeah. So get curious about that second thought. Yeah. Like that's a great tip to kind of say, oh, there we go. Yeah. Because it shows up. Your paradigm is happy to show up. It likes to play in your life. So how, when you talked about keeping a good vibration and keeping those emotions on a high a high vibration, I guess is the easiest way. We've talked about what that means, but so what do I do, and how do I stay motivated? What do I do when I'm challenged, when I'm just having a hard day? What can I do to help be motivated and inspired when that just isn't working, or when that paradigm's like kind of tapping on my shoulder all day long? How can I change that?
So first, we need to understand that every journey has its challenges, and we're expected to face difficulties and blockages sometimes in our journey. I love a quote by Winston Churchill that is very simple, yet very, very powerful. The quote is simply to 5 times, never, 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 never give up. It's just that. But every time I listen to it, it just makes so much sense, and it like hits really, really hard. We always have a choice. That's the thing. You can choose not to surrender to any difficulty that's pushing you down. So the first step is to actually understand that you have a choice. So now, how do we know that we have a choice? You must expect that your ultimate result will be success. This is given that we already have a goal, for example. In expecting and actually believing that we will succeed, we'll eventually know that whatever challenges or failures we're facing now, they simply mean that we're not there yet. But we would still keep going because of our inner belief that eventually we will get where we want to be. Our thoughts create our life. That's a fact. We become what we think about all day long, what we repeat to ourselves. So since we can choose the thoughts to focus on, we can actually choose to accept the idea that failure is a step toward our success, or simply accept it as a final result and just give up. So that this is always a choice. Think success, see success, expect success, and you'll get just that. And the opposite is true as well. So my advice is to listen to Sir Winston Churchill. He clearly knows what he was doing, and yeah, never, 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 never give up.
Yeah, I love that. And I think part of that is I liked how you talked about how you said that we will have difficulties, we will have difficulties. That's why we need the strong muscle, because we got to muscle our way through things sometimes, right? Well, when we are in growth, right? When we are in growth, when we're building that muscle, that sometimes there is some discomfort, or we could say really what we could say mentally, it's that change and that uncertainty. It's those kind of things that feel painful almost in a way. We want to kind of just have figured it out. And so how do we move past that? How do we get familiar with that, with change and uncertainty, and so that we can push past those moments? Because I think that's one of the big hurdles is that uncertainty, because we kind of a lot of times when people go into goal making, they just want to make the goal and then they want to achieve the goal, and in between that's uncertainty. In between is the uncertainty place. So how do we grow past that?
So in order to understand this idea better, we need to start from the premise of how the universe is operating. The universe has always been operating towards one main objective, and that is expansion and fuller expression. As part of the universe, as human beings, we all have a craving and a need for growth that is anchored in our DNA. So the thing is, we sometimes get comfortable and happy with what we have and don't really feel this fire within us, this urge to be more, to have more, and to do more. Successful people and people who stay young, healthy, and happy always accept and welcome change as it truly is, a new opportunity for expansion and fuller expression. So once again, in order to keep going and stay motivated, always make sure you have a clear goal that you're working towards, and always accept change as part of the universal process. Adapt to it, learn to stretch your mind as you stretch your muscles. It will only give you room for more options. And to give a similar example, maybe like in a video game, if everything was easy and everything was level 1 and all the adventures were without monsters, we will not really enjoy the game, right?
Oh, true. That's very true. I love that. That's so true. I have a mentor that talked about, we're here on a roller coaster ride, and we're here we want the full, it's not fun if it's just straight. If it's just a straight line. It makes it fun because you've got the ups and downs. So he would say, I want the full ticket to this life. I bought the full ticket and I want to use it to the fullest. So I love that. Tell us a little bit about your book and writing it and what it's about, and where we can get it, those kind of things.
Yeah, so I wrote this book after finishing a year into this beautiful journey of healing and learning more about myself and my dreams, and learning how my mind functions and what affects my choices and my results. And I found out that I ended up doing a sort of house cleaning to different aspects of my life. I started with the mind, as everything starts on a subconscious level. I learned about my mental faculties and how to strengthen them. I learned what a paradigm was and how to reprogram my inner beliefs to unlock my potential. Then I focused on my body. This is my earthly home, and I need to take good care of it as I'm experiencing all aspects of life through my body. So I gathered knowledge on how to boost my productivity and get more energy, how to have a healthier brain, and how a healthy gut can have a huge impact on my overall health and life. The third chapter is about time. Time is the only resource that is non-replaceable. And we need to really, really pay attention to what we're spending huge chunks of our days, of our lives at. So in this chapter, I explain how to manage activities throughout the day and how to make room for the things that we want to do but never find enough time for. Then I talk about the art of tidying up, how to transform our houses into a place where we can always feel peaceful and stay productive. I also talk about the energy of the house and how it collects our memories, and how an effective house cleaning, when done correctly and in harmony with universal laws, such as the law of vibration and the vacuum law of prosperity, can liberate many blockages that we feel on a subconscious level at home. The last chapter is about the environment, our environment, and how it shapes our decisions, our choices, our lifestyle, and our results. The main takeaway of this chapter is to learn how to scan the environment and decide if it's healthy for you, how to use the power of the mastermind, how to connect with people that can help you achieve success, and how you can help others, and also how to set boundaries and stay in a healthy circle. And yeah, that's in a few sentences a summary of my book.
I think that is great. It sounds like a great, almost a map for people to follow and to clean up their own areas of their lives. And I love that. I think that's a great example of what it's like when you move from, kind of just letting life run you to you learning how to run your life. I think that's really empowering. So tell me a little bit about where you're from and where people can interact with you. So first of all, where are you from? Tell us a little bit more about you particularly.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Tunisia. I moved to France 5 years ago, and now I live in Paris, between Paris and London. So I'm always on the run. I always love to travel. I work as a managing director for a consulting firm, and I devote the rest of my time to coaching people from different backgrounds and from all over the world, and to do what I most love to do, that is traveling and discovering this beautiful world that we live in.
Yeah, well, you've got to come visit the States sometime.
Of course.
We'll go out to dinner. That would be amazing.
Of course, I would love to. It's on my list for sure.
Oh, good. Yeah. Over here, the word wholeness is becoming, in the US, it's becoming a big deal. Oprah Winfrey said, wholeness is the new wellness, is what she put in her magazine. And so it's kind of something that we are getting more familiar with here. And I don't know if that's the case over in Europe, but I'd still love, no matter what comes to mind when you think about the idea, the concept, or the word wholeness.
Maybe it's still new in Europe, I would say. But for me, wholeness, I understand it as the way we function is really connected. Everything is connected to everything. We all connected as souls, and we all are connected with our universe that we live in. So wholeness for me also means that I can actually shape my results starting with my thoughts. It's a whole process that is interconnected. I would start with choosing the way I think, choosing what to think, choosing my ideas, actually craft these ideas into my mind, and then these ideas will impact my emotions, and then my emotions will impact my actions, and eventually my actions would cause a reaction from the universe, from other people, and will eventually make my dreams and my results that I want come true. So this is the concept of wholeness, that the way I see it is that everything is really connected to everything. We just need to pay attention and see the patterns and believe in the law of attraction, the law of vibration, that everything connects with everything, and our actions will cause the reaction that we want. So in order to have the results that we want, we start by ourselves, and then we will project this vibration, and we'll eventually attract the same result that we want.
Feel empowered every day with wholeness videos, meditations, downloads, classes, and more by joining the Wholeness Library at thewholenessnetwork.com.